Since its founding in 1829 by Horace Blackman, mid-sized mid-Michigan Jackson has plenty of which to be proud. It was home to Harry Selfridge, founder of London's Selfridge department store. Home to astronaut James McDivitt, as well as the birthplace of astronaut Al Worden. Jackson has also staked its claim as the birthplace of the Republican Party, as has Ripon, Wisconsin, where Harry Selfridge was born. But the icing on Jackson's cake has been described as one of the wonders of the world. The fact is, when the switch was thrown on May 9, 1932, nothing like it had ever been built in the United States. While its status of wonder of the world may be subjective, residents of Jackson and millions of visitors worldwide simply refer to it as the Cascades. At the time, and to this day, the Cascades is considered to be the world's largest artificial cascading waterfall. It consists of 16 falls, 3 60 by 90-foot reflecting pools, and 6 fountains. The Cascades reaches skyward 64 feet, is 60 feet wide, and 500 feet in length. But the sheer size of the Cascades is only part of the appeal. What has been thrilling audiences since its opening is the magic of its synchronized lights. Providing water for the Cascades is something of an engineering feat. A 2,000-gallon per minute pump and a 1,000-gallon per minute pump fill the pools, while the smaller pump is used in the fall's operation. Originally, water was pumped from spring-fed lagoons and lakes that were dug specifically for the project. Now, water is provided by a recirculating system, not unlike that of a commercial swimming pool. It's been estimated that when the falls opened, it could provide a city of 30,000 with its daily water. A city of 15,000 would have its power needs met with the electricity used for the fall's lights and pumps. Statistics aside, nothing in the U.S. has been built to date that parallels the fall's exhilarating merging of water and light. It was the vision of Jackson industrialist William Sparks that made the Cascades a reality. At age 9, Sparks emigrated from Devonshire, England with his family to the Jackson area in 1882. William's father, George, had been recruited by Theodore Bennett to do some stonework on his farm south of Jackson. At 13, Sparks went to work at a local grocery store where frequent 14-hour days established the foundation for his work ethic.
And they lived in the caretaker house where Duncan Beeman used to live. Mr. Bennett sold the farm to Fritz Probert Sr. And Mr. Probert really wanted to have his own house, so he contracted to have that built, and the master carpenter on that job was Tilly Sparks' dad, George Peters. And when Tilly would go out there as a young teenager, she met William. he was on the farm area, and we feel that they must have met there and fell in love.
On August 24th, 1893, at the age of 20, William Sparks married Matilda Jane Peters, who was 3 years his senior and who bore him 2 sons, Harry and Clifford. George Sparks would eventually manage the Bennett farm and stayed on when Hubert Probert took over ownership in 1897. Probert hired master contractor Henry J. Peters, Matilda's father, to build a barn for the estate, which prominently featured the irregular fieldstone work used throughout the estate. William and Tilly operated their own grocery business on Milwaukee Street and resided next door through the 1890s. Although business and raising a family took the majority of his time, young Sparks was able to attend classes at Devlin College
and further developed his interest in precision marching. Even as a child, William embraced the discipline of military cadence. This would lead to his commanding one of the world's most recognized drill teams, the Jackson Zouaves.
His Zouave experience was certainly a highlight of his life. He got into that in an offhanded way because when my grandmother couldn't read his grocery orders, his penmanship was horrible, she encouraged him quite hard to go to night school, and he went to the Devlin Business School downtown. And it so happened that Harry Devlin had a drill cadet group. Wasn't Zouaves at that time. It so happened that the cadets were competing with a group from Aurora, Illinois, out of state, and Mr. Devlin saw these guys in Zouave outfits and he went crazy about that get-up. So when he returned to Jackson, he changed his cadet group to a Zouave group. The pantaloons, the short jackets, fez hats.
Sparks' business education paid dividends in 1900 when he went to work as a bookkeeper for Winthrop and Philip Withington, sons of prominent Jacksonian William Withington. It was the senior Withington's Jackson Grays Militia that was the first Michigan unit to respond to President Lincoln's call to duty at the onset of the Civil War.
The Withington boys had advertised for a manager of a stamping company that Withington and Cooley was running in about the same location as the Acme plant is on Ganson Street. They were using convict labor in addition to regular workers to build farm implements.
At the turn of the century, Jackson was well established as an important manufacturing and transportation center. To meet the growing transportation needs of the area and nationally, Jackson's producers of horse-drawn vehicles refined their manufacturing processes, thereby creating a template for modern mass production methods. Between 1885 and 1890, 8 new carriage companies were added to the tax roll, a situation that arguably put a strain on the natural resources, most notably the Grand River. This strong foundation of carriage design and assembly allowed Jackson manufacturers to make a smooth transition to automobile production. No less than 21 makes of automobiles were produced in Jackson between 1901 and 1924. Although Jackson automobile production had a minor resurgence in the early 1950s with the Kaiser, The city established itself as a Tier 1 and Tier 2 supplier for Detroit's automobile industry. But by the mid-1970s, even those plants had virtually ceased production. But Jackson's economic strength grew primarily with its role in the state's railroad industry. 1841 witnessed the first locomotive of the Michigan Central Railroad rolling into town. Entrepreneurs, prospectors, and settlers from the east would soon follow. In 1856, a Michigan Southern Railroad arrived, making Jackson the first Michigan city to service two competing lines. When the Civil War broke out, just 1,000 miles of rail crisscrossed the Michigan landscape. By 1871, Jackson was servicing 8 railroad lines, and by 1890, 9,000 miles of rail had been laid. For a young man with ambition and drive, Jackson offered ample opportunities for success. Sparks' insight into manufacturing helped the Withington's Stamping Company to expand profitably. And soon, the Sparks Withington Company was established with William Sparks as general manager. By 1909, the Sparton Corporation had been formed and was manufacturing radiator fans to supply the growing automobile industry. Sparton is a combination of the first 4 letters of Sparks and the last 3 letters of Withington. Inspired by the Claxon Horn Company in Cleveland, Sparton designed and built its own mechanical horn.
Cap Sparks was able to go to Packard Motor Car Company in 1915. Packard Motor Car Company in those days was the equivalent of Cadillac today, Lincoln today, and maybe Lexus. Cap Sparks was able to get some of the, not all of it, but some of the business at Packard Motor Car Company, which was a prestigious step for Sparks Withington. In about 1920, he was able to talk to Henry Ford and the people at Ford. From 1920 until Dad left management in 1951, we had the Ford Motor Car Company horn business for 100% of their production.
Additional plants were built in 1910 and 1912, and Sparton continued to show a profit, thanks in part to some innovative marketing. For example, in 1915, Sparks sent his sons, Clifford and Harry, on a road trip to post signs near dangerous hills, curves, and blind spots along the newly completed Lincoln and National highways. Drivers were advised, safety first, sound Spartan. The trip was arduous. In a cable to his father, Harry wrote, "Numerous detours. It is impossible to erect many signs. Had to push car most of the way over Sansui Mountains. Top brake lining burned out. Took off crankcase and replaced it and found broken pin. Had one forged. Had car towed up 2 hills by mule team and started on the way." When the United States entered World War I in 1917, manufacturing shifted to the war effort, although Spartan horns continued to be produced. After the war, research and development focused on new products, with significant attention paid to the radio. By 1926, Sparton had produced its first experimental battery-powered radio set. However, an efficient way to mass-produce vacuum tubes was still on the horizon. A company was established in Cleveland to develop a cost-effective method for producing vacuum tubes. 2 years and tens of thousands in capital later, radios containing vacuum tubes developed by Charles J. Keiko were being turned on in homes throughout America. And by 1929, Sparton could claim over 7,000 workers on its payroll. Sparks had no problem with turning a profit in business, nor would he shy away from the public eye. His service to the Jackson community included 3 terms as mayor, a term as president of the Chamber of Commerce, service to Boy Scouts, and countless public organizations. But his greatest source of personal pride was undoubtedly his rank of commander in the Zouaves, where he earned the nickname Cap for Captain. The Zouaves were Jackson's world-famous precision drill team, recognized for their cadence of up to 360 steps per minute.
When Mr. Devlin joined the Wild West Bill Cody show for a year or two, and they went overseas, not only in the States but overseas, a lot of the Devlin fellas, including Granddad Sparks, had jobs in Jackson that couldn't allow them to leave. So many of the fellas went with Bill Cody, but some of the guys, like my grandfather, was not able to do this. Well, later, when Mr. Devlin wanted to retire, the cadets and the Zouaves went over to 2nd Street to Captain Tilley's house. By that time, he was at Sparks Withington, and he was making some money. And he said, "Would you support us? Would you be our leader?" And he agreed to step in and take over where Mr. Devlin had done it. The ability to go to different cities and conventions and drill competition increased.
They performed regularly throughout the United States and Europe, and were even recruited by Hollywood to perform in Court Jester, starring Danny Kaye. In later years, they made regular appearances on The Ed Sullivan Show. In what would have to be considered an early politically correct move, Cap Sparks gave his approval to the formation of the Women's Zouaves. The fact is, the Zouaves were so well-trained and disciplined, their expertise humbled even the legendary Blackjack Pershing, who commanded a drill team of his own. It has long been assumed that the seed for the Cascades was planted in early 1929 when Captain Sparks and the Zouaves were performing in Spain at the Barcelona Exposition. Sparks is said to have experienced the magic of light and water of Carlos Bouget's Magic Fountain and the Cascades of the Plaza España.
If you're looking at the city of Barcelona from the sea, there is a park called the Montjuïc. And in 1929, there was happened to be an exhibition where they built this beautiful building in falls area. At night, it's a illuminated falls, and it's much larger than our Cascades, but it's very pretty. And we think that he got the idea of a Cascades type thing there.
However, a mid-1930s article in a local newspaper claims Sparks' inspiration for the Cascades was Versailles. In Versailles, I obtained the idea from which the Cascades have grown, Sparks was quoted. The article went so far as to caption a photo of the Cascades as the Versailles of the New World. Regardless of whether it was the Plaza España or the Fountains of Versailles, most likely both, when Sparks returned from Europe, he devoted more time and resources to developing his illuminated falls. Sparks' original vision was to transform 457 acres of wetland into a championship golf course with clubhouse and a vast meditation park with lakes and lagoons. The Sparks Foundation was created in March of 1929 and was designed to fund this Versailles of the New World. But CAP demanded a one-of-a-kind design. The task initially was assigned to the Foundation's chief engineer, A.W.D. Hall. Hall's design for a 50-foot diameter fountain was immediately rejected by Sparks, who said, "Everybody has a fountain. I want something no one else has."
This is Donald Sargent, a retired Jackson designer engineer who actually designed the Cascades. Mr. Sargent, how did you happen to get the assignment of designing the Cascades?
Well, I worked in the office of the engineers that built the park. Mr. Sparks wanted something different than anybody else had in the country. He asked for a design for some waterfalls. And after some falls designs had been given to him along the rustic idea, he discarded that idea entirely. So they asked me to design a more formal set of waterfalls. And this is what I came up with.
How were they received after they were built?
The first night on the opening, there was a large crowd here. And it was so different than anything anybody had seen that they soon got word to other people. And the following Sunday, another man and I checked the car licenses all day long, and they were from practically every state in the Union, and this was all without any advertising at all.
Sargent's original design indicated the falls were to be 40 feet wide, 20 feet less than the original design. Sparks' vision also called for a 200-foot tower at the top of the falls that would house a meditation chapel and the family mausoleum. But this tower in the clouds wasn't meant to be. After plans for the project were revealed in September, the stock market crash of October forced cutbacks. And even though many hoped the tower would be built after the falls opened, Mrs. Sparks made it known she was less than enamored with being interred in a tourist attraction. Construction for the Sparks Foundation Park was awarded to the North Moeller Company of Jackson. North Moeller was responsible for the construction of both the falls and the clubhouse, the latter of which was designed by local architect Claire Allen. Allen is also credited with the design for the tower. Allen was one of the most sought-after architects for the well-to-do and had designs for over 100 homes and public buildings to his credit, many of which are still standing. William Ryan of Jackson was tapped for the dredging of the lakes and lagoons. It was a seemingly insurmountable task simply because the entire area was virtually a swamp. Ryan's company would transform the onion field into a system of 7 ponds and 1.5 miles of 8-foot deep lagoons to provide water for the falls and create a meditative setting. Ground was broken in the spring of 1930, and for the construction crew, the timing couldn't have been better. The Depression was taking its toll, even among employees of Sparton and Sparks Withington. William Sparks insisted employees with families be hired first. Average pay was 37 cents an hour, significantly higher than the 25 cents an hour established as minimum wage in 1938. The 2,100-foot-long Prado that led from the Sparks mansion to the falls was inspired by the Prado Sparks had seen in Havana, Cuba. "50,000 yards of fill was used for the foundation of the Prado, and it was quickly claimed by the swamp. On May 9th, in 1932, on the 59th birthday of William Sparks, the falls was filled and the switch was thrown for the mostly local audience of 25,000. Revealing a never-before-experienced spectacle. Water and light were merged into a single element, and Jackson, Michigan could now claim a world-class attraction as its own. It didn't take long for word about the Cascades to circle the globe. Even famed aviatrix Amelia Earhart visited the falls when she spoke at Jackson's 1935 Town Hall Lecture Series. To ensure that the popularity of the Cascades and the tourist dollars it generated never waned, the annual Cascades Festival was established. Inspired by the elaborate Busby Berkeley musicals, the Falls Board of Directors hired the John B. Rogers Producing Company of Fostoria, Ohio, to create an extravaganza equal to none. And from August 14th to the 21st, 1938, audiences embraced Aqualore, the 10-episode story of water. A cast of 2,000, mostly local performers, told the epic tale on 10 stages, and the grand finale featured all 2,000-plus performers singing en masse on all 10 stages.
At each of the levels, they would have stages. Not one stage, but there were 2 to 3 stages. The falls would still be operating, but then the water would go down and the stage would be over the flat section of the water where it was an open space. And they would have different kind of acts. Certainly the Zouaves drill there, but they would have dancing groups, choral groups, acrobats, all kinds of festivities. And of course they always had the young ladies and a queen.
1939's festival, Goddess of the Rainbow, was a slightly scaled-back edition. Just 7 stages, but still 2,000-plus performers. Barbara Boardman, the goddess, became something of a celebrity in her own right after rubbing shoulders with celebrities as she and her court promoted the festival. Festivals were also held in 1940 and 1941, but after World War II broke out, the water was shut off and the festivals ceased. In 1943, an era in the Cascades ended with the passing of William Sparks at the age of 70. Mourners stood in line for hours to pay their respects. The following year, the family donated the 457 acres that made up the Sparks Foundation Park to Jackson County, but it would not be until 1947 that the falls would reopen. Prior to Sparks' death, the maintenance of the falls, golf course, and park was the responsibility of the Sparks Foundation. From 1944 to 1963, the County Road Commission assumed administration. After 1967, the County Parks Commission called the shots. Even as early as the 1950s, the Road Commission knew it was fighting an uphill battle. Vandals, water damage, and outdated equipment were no match for the fall's shrinking budget. By 1969, it was obvious to all that unless there was some intervention, the falls would have to be closed. But the Sparks legacy was not to be denied. Save the Cascades became the rallying cry that infused much-needed funds into the fall's repairs. $200,000 in private donations was raised, and to minimize damage from vandals, the controversial wall was erected. Dubbed Fort McManus after County Parks Commissioner David McManus, the wall formed an amphitheater with seating obtained from the Cincinnati Reds' Crosley Field, which was being torn down. The wall and the barbed wire top fence that surrounded the falls did indeed reduce access for vandals, but also the public. Having diverted disaster in 1969, other improvements to the park soon followed. In 1974, dredging for the ponds and lagoons commenced, the first time since the falls opened. However, silt and muck are once again clogging the waterways, only this time no dredging is planned.
The dredging of the lagoons was part of the original master plan for Sparks Park. And at this point in time, we were focusing our energy on the renovations for the Cascades proper, basically the structure with all the falls and the lighting and the music, etc. But knowing that it is part of and the history of the Cascades, I believe that in the future we might be able to partner and work with, in conjunction with maybe DNR, which is Department of Natural Resources, and the DEQ, which is the Department of Environmental Quality, for seeing that there's a feasibility to possibly dredge a portion of or all of the lagoons in the future. But that right now, at this point in time, is not the focus of what we're doing with the Cascades renovation.
When originally dredged in 1932, the lagoons were about 8 feet deep. Since the dredging in 1974, contaminated runoff has contributed to reducing the depth of the lagoons to about 1.5 feet. The shallow water allows a greater amount of sunlight to reach the weeds, which in turn promotes even more growth. In short, the area is reverting to its original wetland state. It should be noted, however, the falls is no longer dependent on the lagoon system for water. A recirculating system similar to that of a commercial swimming pool was installed in 1993. With water no longer circulating throughout the lagoons, algae has become an ongoing problem. To combat the green bloom, portable fountains are placed in the main pond to keep the water circulating. For the secondary ponds, not so much. New lenses for the lights were located and installed in 1980, and in 1983 a computerized synchronization system for the lights was installed. Previously, the lights were changed by reducing or increasing the flow of electrical current with a series of cams. The cams determine the amount of electricity flowing to the lights, thereby regulating their color and intensity. The new system utilized one of the first digital tape players ever available. It was similar in function to those used for Disneyland's animatronics and was easily adapted for the control of the fall's lights and water. In 1981, a new falls tradition was introduced. Fireworks now signal the Memorial Day opening of the falls, 4th of July, and the Labor Day close. Over 20,000 attendees witnessed the spectacle, made possible by the Frank and Irene Myers family. In 1993, the technology was refined when the sockets for all the lights were rewired and replaced, and a desktop computer control system was installed, thereby allowing more succinct control of the lights based on the volume and beat of the music. However, some felt the fall's meditative qualities may have been compromised, at least during the regularly scheduled synchronized presentation. As the 1990s continued, improvements to the falls and park gained momentum. For example, Jackson's Rotary Club provided funds and labor to build a community band shell north of the falls. In 2014, concerts were held every Saturday from June through August and featured local musicians as well as special guest artists. Restoration of the Prado followed, as did the building of the boardwalk at the Prado's east entrance and in front of the falls. A children's play park was built on the south side of the falls, and space was leased for an ice cream store. In the mid-2000s, the board of directors formalized a series of plans for ongoing improvements to the park. Among them was the restoration of the Denton Street Bridge. The county gave its blessing to allowing a near-identical design of the original two-lane bridge to be built. The county initially wanted a four-lane flat bridge to accommodate what was perceived to be an increase in traffic. Former board member Judy Reynolds thought otherwise.
Please, people, this is a park. It's not a throughway, it's not a highway, it's a park. And we couldn't have been more thrilled when they finally agreed to make it a two-lane.
In 2013, the fall's lights joined the 21st century when the incandescent bulbs were replaced with light-emitting diodes.
The old lights were 60 watt and 100 watt light bulbs, and then they had a colored globe that went over them, red, green, and blue. The problem with that was, one thing is it took a long time to take them in and out each season, and then there was light, they didn't fit tightly on the back of the wall, so the white light would slip out the back. That's illuminated. We have a total green, blue, red across a solid color all the way across the falls now. So we don't have that leakage of the light coming out the back. Back in the day, you know, they changed slow, so they weren't able to keep up with the new computer stuff. So as the lights change slowly, you know, you probably get a more true color than you do with the LEDs that are made to do the popping.
LEDs boast numerous advantages, not the least of which is a significant lower energy consumption. In other words, that town of 15,000 that could have been powered on opening day in 1932 would barely have enough electricity for a couple of blocks.
There's 16 lips in the falls that are lit, and each lip has 108, used to have 108 light bulbs in it, and they ranged in wattage from 60 watt to 150 watt light bulbs. So quite a lot of wattage. Now we broke that down to each lip of the falls runs about 4 75 watt light bulbs.
In the fall of 2014, hell froze over and pigs flew. That is to say, Fort McManus was breached. After the seating was removed, a demolition crew reduced the infamous eyesore to rubble. And for the first time in 45 years, the Cascades was visible from Brown Street.
Vision will be wide open. We'll have a black, it's aluminum, but it'll be a black wrought iron railing around there. So everything will be more visible from the road as you go through there. So as far as vandalism goes, I don't think it's going to be a problem because people are still going to be able to see in a lot better than just a wall that you can't see through, which tends to let people get in there. And even the wall was up, we still had vandalism. I mean, you're never going to stop it. They're always going to find a way to get in. Security cameras are going to be our best friend, I think.
But while the Falls appears to be keeping pace with technology, the infrastructure is sorely in need of attention.
Falls has got cracks everywhere, so they have to be hand ground out and cleaned, and then we caulk each and every crack that we can find. And then annually we have to paint what we can with the budget that we have, so it stays white, looking nice for everybody. The pumps are original. Most of the pipes are original. The motors have been replaced. Obviously over the years they wear out and short out, so we have to replace those. But as far as the infrastructure, we still have the original wiring under there that's lead coated. So it's very fragile.
The park's maintenance and growth is overseen by the County Parks Board of Directors, who in turn are assigned a budget from the county commissioners.
The County Parks Board, we create the policy and budget in cooperation with the Jackson County Board of Commissioners. Our job is to assist and help the staff out here at the parks, and in this case the falls, to create a better and outstanding attraction for our citizens of Jackson County.
The Parks Commission is also responsible for 14 other county parks. The newest, Falling Waters Trail, which at 10.5 miles in length could be considered one of the longest public parks, albeit at 12 feet wide, the narrowest. In all fairness, Falling Waters is more of a stroll through the park rather than a picnic in one. With 457 acres, the Cascades is unquestionably the county's largest park. However, the 560 acres of nearby Ellis Sharp Park, which is administered by the city, not county, has it beat in size. In 1912, the city was bequeathed the Sharp family farm owned by daughter Ella, located adjacent to the Probert farm where Cap Sparks' father George worked. Ella Sharp's residence has been transformed into a museum, And after an extensive fundraising campaign, a facility was built to house the Jackson Historical Museum, art gallery, classrooms, restaurant, and banquet facilities, which complemented the existing planetarium, restored farm buildings, golf course, and a multitude of sports fields. Meanwhile, back at the Cascades, the park continues to reflect the times and needs of the public by hosting many annual events. Among them, Paws in the Park, which benefits the Cascades Humane Society. Relay for Life, which benefits the American Cancer Society. And the Civil War Muster, considered by many to be one of the best battle reenactments in the country. Although considered the flagship of Jackson's parks, the Cascades nonetheless still faces many challenges. The Parks Department's budget can only be stretched so far, and the entrance fee can only be raised so much to compensate. To make up the difference, fundraisers are held and applications for grants are made. Only time will tell if it will be enough to keep the falls operating.
I'm really looking for the opportunity to partner with the community who's been very, very giving to us as a Parks Department in trying to look forward to those renovations. That'll probably take a good 5 or more years to rehabilitate, to preserve the history and the grandeur of the Cascades. It's going to be a wonderful opportunity. I'll partner with local businesses, local contractors, and local service clubs to make this truly happen in the future.
Phase 1, we got the wall taken down, and $300,000 was raised to do phase 1, and now we're looking for $9.5 million to do the whole job. If the electrical and the plumbing fail, it won't happen. Memorial Weekend. And that's what we're trying to fight. And we're probably going to need some state and or federal money or local money big time to do phase 2, which will redo the plumbing and the water, the valving, the electrical, the whole thing. Had to go right into the hill and change things and update it.
To this day, the Falls continues to draw visitors, not just statewide, but from around the country, and if they're in town, from around the world. Locals agree it would be a pity to let it all go down the drain. Bye.